Okay, here we go. Nice and quiet.
Sound speeds, camera rolling.
Holding for sound. Last looks. Calling for last looks.
And set and action.
I need to swap batteries.
You know, making movies is hard.
Making movies is hard.
All right, welcome to Making Movies is Hard, the podcast about the struggle of being an independent filmmaker. I'm Mark Purcell.
I'm Liz Manischel.
This week we have director Oz Rodriguez on the show to talk about directing his latest feature film, Vampires vs. the Bronx.
One of the other things in my checklist was I wanted to make an adventure story, a fun adventure story with leads from like a Dominican American kid who was the lead, and a story like the ones I saw growing up, like Lost Boys and Goonies and Monster Squad. You know, I saw those movies in the Dominican Republic, and I was able to connect with those kids who are in a lot of them in California running around. So I thought to myself, maybe it could be the other way. Maybe people can connect to kids running around in the Bronx.
I really like talking to Oz. It was kind of an amazing conversation. He was interesting. It's like a comedy guy doing a genre film, but like could tell that he always wanted to really make a genre film. So it was fun to like see him make that happen. And then obviously it was a very personal story to him too, which is like always great.
I love how he talked about his career trajectory as if it was a straight line. Like it was the weirdest thing. It was like, oh, I just did this and this and this, and it led to this, and then I got this. It was like this lovely pathway.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very traditional in the comedy sense, I think. You know, started at Super Deluxe, made videos, went to Funny or Die, made more videos, and then all of a sudden he's at freaking SNL, which is like crazy. But I also think it's like the best version of that story, you know, like that's like hitting the jackpot, basically. We also have a horror short film from a friend of the show, Dave Bundtzen, which is fun. And do we have anything else horror related today, or is it just those two things?
Just the state of the world.
And the state of the world to add to everything else. Yes, exactly. But yeah, before we get to Oz,
breath catches in my chest until I hear three little words. You got mail.
Liz, what do we got?
Well, we have a new Patreon. We don't have new mail, but we have a new Patreon, and I think we should celebrate him for a second.
Yes, let's do it.
Michael Groves. Okay, wait. This is the big moment. He's a stranger to me. Is he a stranger to you?
He is a stranger to me.
This is our second stranger Patreon.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate it, sir.
Wait, what if he doesn't like being called Mike? We don't know. Like,
I only know that because I saw it in his email response to you about the PIN address. So that's why I was like, yes, he wants to be called Mike. And if that's
Mike.
A bad thing to say, Mike, and you actually prefer Michael, let us know.
We're new friends now, so he can correct us because we're new.
Yeah,
We're establishing our relationship and the terms of a relationship.
It was really funny because like Timothy, old co-host of the show, he hated being called Tim, but people always called him Tim all the time. And they would reference him as Tim. I'm just like, it's Timothy. His name is Timothy, damn it.
I have a friend named Gabriel who would die if you call him Gabe. Hates Gabe.
Really? Yeah.
Loves Gabriel.
Gabriel. I get it. You know, Archangel. Come on now. You know, not that I'm religious that much.
Happy Halloween.
So the quarantine files on YouTube, is this a You've Got Mail? What is this? Tell me what this is.
All right. Well, so I'm now manning or womaning our Twitter page, and I'm just trying to figure out how to engage with people. So I thought, let's just do this weekly. It's really fun. I just put up a tweet and I just said, tell us what to shout out when we record our segments today. And the amazing, lovely humans from 2 East 8th who have been like really wonderful supporters of us right now. They mentioned that they put on this, just released the show, The Quarantine Files on YouTube. And I thought, why not? Let's promote them free of charge, willingly and lovingly. Let's just let people know that they should check out The Quarantine Files.
Awesome. Yeah, they were the ones who put us on one of their lists, right? Of like best movie making podcasts or something. Yeah. I'm so honored whenever we're on a list. Are
we on other lists?
We're on lists here and there. We're not on all the lists. What was that? Those damn bastards. I think it was No Film School didn't put us on their list, but they put Just Shoot It and Indie Film Hustle on their list. And I was just like,
well, they're really good. That's our squad goal. Our squad goal is to be part of the No Film School.
One day.
This year.
This year?
Yeah.
Do you think they put out a list every year of the best filmmaking podcasts? I don't know. Maybe they do.
If not, like, we'll make them. will inspire them to create a new list to include us.
Just from the greatness of our show. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. I dig it. So if you want to be like Michael Groves and become a patron, like is what you're really supposed to call it. You can go find us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/MMIH podcast. You can give us $1. You can give us $5, $4, or $9, and you can get one of our pins, which are dwindling now, right, Liz? They're dwindling. There's not so many.
I mean,
left.
I only say that because it sounds more exciting. Like, oh, supplies last. No, there's tons. There's tons of pins left, and you too can get. And I usually throw in more than one, so you're getting a lot of value.
Right, because we have so few. And then if you want to be like other people who have done this in the past, it's been a while, you can send us an email to podcast@makingmoviesishard.com and, ask us a question, send a comment, or maybe make a suggestion on how the show could be better. And we'll talk about it on the show. And if we disagree with you, we will tell you that we disagree with you. If you make a suggestion,
Very
we don't
politely. We're very polite disagreeers.
Yeah, politely, but I mean, I think honest, critical, feedback, or constructive criticism. That's always good. And then lastly, jump over to Instagram if you haven't already. Hit that like button, follow, whatever you do on there, and then you can find our YouTube page. We've got this wonderful new YouTube page. We're getting new YouTube subscribers every week. We're up to like 129. We were at like 125 last week, so we got 4 new people in a week. Which sounds like nothing, but to me, it's like, oh man, people are actually giving a shit. That's cool.
It's 4 new souls. They're not just numbers to us. I agree with you.
And the views are going up. Like last week we had like 20 something views on our episode. But the week before we had like 10. So like, we get those views to go up with the subscribers, I mean, we'll be in the business.
We also do very little promotion of this page. So it's 100% organic, this growth.
We have not even posted it on our freaking Facebook page. That's how on top of things we are here. But I think we have other things to talk about, Liz, like maybe a Get Shorty segment.
Get Shorty.
So you make movies, huh?
I produce feature motion pictures.
I got an idea for a movie.
So this week we have a returning guest on the show, Dave Bundtzen, also a wonderful local producer, writer, director, friend of the show. Met him way, way back when Timothy and I did the show years and years ago. We got a beer. It was cool. But he also produced one of my recent short films, Parka, that I directed. That's not out yet. So thank you, Dave, my hero. But he has 3 horror shorts that he's done in the last few years, and they've been getting a lot of love. And I wanted to talk about The Devil's Passenger today because it's a really cool short. And, it got into Shriek Fest. It's getting lots of love, not only around Halloween, but just in general. Let's hear Dave talk about The Devil's Passenger.
Hey, Alrik and Liz, and the Making Movies is Hard audience. So let's get to the questions. So why did I make this short versus another medium? Well, I guess the first thing is that I've been making a lot of short films, very comfortable with making short films. And I wanted to make 3 horror shorts. I wanted to do these for my YouTube channel, which is called Flicks Horror. And I wanted to make 3 very different kind of horror films so that I had about 4 on there and to see if I could actually grow the channel. So why this story? This story came about when I lived in Los Angeles. I was on the 405 freeway and I was stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic. It was really bad, just as anyone that's been on the 405 knows. And it just was one of these situations where we were just inching along and I had a white van in front of me. And this is where I was just kind of thinking about this, like, what would happen if somebody actually popped up and, what would I do in that situation? And I was thinking about, like, could I stop the car? Could I get out? Could I actually intervene? Would other people help me? And all this kind of thing, and started really just kind of got lost in the thought process during this traffic. And this really stuck with me for years. And I remember that it was something that when I really kind of went to write this story, I used that as kind of my centerpiece and was like, okay, this is what I want to really expand on. How did your team come up with the funds? Well, this was completely 100% self-funded. I did, it didn't have a very big budget, as most short films don't. But what I tried to do is, because I had produced a lot of content in the past, was to try to be as smart as possible and try to get as much as possible, either inexpensively or free or favors or whatever I could possibly do, so that I could really make this happen. I mean, there was so much that, like, in the sense of what, ways to save money. I directed it, I produced it, I wrote it, and I edited the project just to really keep, costs down and to try to just do as much as possible to get this thing made with the tiny budget that I actually did have. Before making the short, what did I think would happen with my career because of it? I really looked at this story as part of like 3 films that I was going to be making. I had made Tap already, which was a scene, and Devil's Passenger was to be kind of this narrative story. And then I was going to expand on that with window dressing. Once I got the film finished, I released it on YouTube. My hope was to get the film made and get it online, and that was really the only goal for it. My high watermark goal for this was to reach 30,000 views, 30,000 people watch the film, and which I really hoped would happen because I was releasing it right before Halloween. So what ended up happening was the film did really well on YouTube, and so I decided that I would submit it to a couple of the horror film festivals. I did it kind of backwards because most people go to film festivals first and then they release online afterwards. But, because that wasn't really part of the process, I did it backwards. So the film ended up going into these festivals. It ended up winning several awards at a few film festivals, which was awesome. Because of that, it continued to gain momentum on YouTube. And so to this date, it's been viewed like 485,000 times. It's been subtitled in 15 different languages. And I went from having 400 subscribers when I first started Flix Horror to now I think it has over 7,700 subscribers. So it's really grown a lot, and it's been fantastic. And I really appreciate everybody that's watched the film and supported it. So now that it's gotten around the world, what purpose has it served? The Devil's Passenger really has gotten my name out there. It's really gotten a lot of awareness for the film and for me. One of the things that's unique about YouTube is that, we did the movie a couple of years ago, and it's still gaining momentum. And what it is it doesn't matter when your release date is. It's just when people really, start finding it and start sharing it and all this type of thing. And, people have been doing that, and it's been really just amazing to watch, and I feel very, very fortunate that that's happened. So would I have done anything differently story-wise? Well, one thing that was in the original script was, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on this, which is basically when the woman she loses her phone, it drops down into the passenger floorboards. And people are just like, well, why didn't you just go and pick it up while she was driving? And I had a scene in the original script where she tries to do that. And she reaches down and she's trying to reach for the phone. And she has to reach so far down that her head goes, below the dashboard. And, she's trying to touch it. And all of a sudden you hear this horn beeping. And she looks up and her car has veered over into the other lane and is going head on to a truck. And then she has to kind of whip around this truck and get around it. And it's a great scare. And it also would kind of set like the tone as far as, the phone is just not accessible. And I think that would have helped a lot as far as being able to do that. But, unfortunately, budget restrictions and just our time, we just didn't have the time to really do that scene. And so I ended up cutting that out. So that would have been really nice to have. But, it's one of those things that I'm very happy with how the film came out and, that people have enjoyed it. Hey, Alrik and Liz, thanks so much for including The Devil's Passenger in Get Shorty. I hope that everybody has a chance to check out this horror film. Now that Halloween's coming up, check it out. See what you guys think. Send me a comment. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump in on my thoughts on The Devil's Passenger. I feel like I'm going to be cranky about it. I'm trying not to be, because we should always be supportive of people creating art and telling stories and putting things out there. It's really difficult, and I don't want this to be like, let's jump on flaws segment, right?
It can be, though. It can be.
I don't want it to be. I just found myself wondering, what what's the point of it all? Like, what's the point of this short? What if we're going to create this story? And maybe Dave, in answering our questions, which we haven't heard yet, is answering this question right now. And I look like a fool, and it's really a metaphor for the Vietnam War. I don't know. It could be this like amazing message. And I'm not saying all films need to have messages. I'm just saying, I think as a woman, when I watch horror content, and I know that there's a history of, torture porn and kind of like manipulation of the female form in this genre, I'm watching these two women get tortured and I'm wondering why. What am I learning? What's the point of it? And I know at the end, there's a gender flip, but I really like horror to a specific end. Like, that's why I love Mike Flanagan. That's why I like kind of these more family horror, like disturbing the domestic state horror rather than just like torture porn or Hostel or something like that.
Right.
So I didn't know what the point of it was. I don't know why we need a 3 years later, intertextual reference. I didn't think the makeup was really strong, and I didn't love that stylistic element of those like minor jump cuts that were going throughout. So for me, it just didn't ring my bell. But
wow,
there I am being super negative about it. Poor Dave.
Wow.
Dave's like, fuck that girl. I hate Liz.
He can handle it, man. He's like made a lot of movies over the years, and I think he puts himself out there, which is one of the things I really like about him as a filmmaker is that he's not one of these filmmakers who like makes a short film and then submits it to film festivals and then they keep it under lock and key and they don't like release it, and a lot of people do that, especially some of the more highfalutin types do that, I've noticed, which is interesting. But yeah, no, he's not like that at all. He just puts all his shit out for people to see. You can find all his short films on either YouTube or Vimeo, which is great.
And I'm just one lady's opinion. That's all. Just one lady, an opinion.
It's
of a
interesting.
Lady.
Well, I wouldn't put this in the category of torture porn. Like, I kind of feel like it's more in the category of like this little tiny little mini story, this little like mini slice. It's like it's the classic like Twilight Zone-y like rinse and repeat thing, right? Where it's like you find a story, you find yourself into a situation, you don't know what's going on, you figure out what's going on, the person gets fucked, and then it starts over again, right?
Yeah.
And then it's just like it's a classic thing that we see in a lot of.
It's like all these good deed doers are being punished for trying to do good deeds. But maybe that's the worldview, right?
I say don't tailgate, and don't follow people. I'd say that's one thing, maybe that's what this is trying to say. Don't be too nosy, I don't know. Anyways, so for me, like I saw this years and years ago when it first came out. I've always liked this one. I thought this is my favorite of Dave's work just because it's really short and sweet. It instantly engages you and grabs you and draws you into the world. It's very clear. It doesn't muddle itself with like extra details that don't matter or extra plot points that are pointless. It just takes you on its journey, and before you know it, it's over and the trap has been set and taken, and then you're off, and then whatever, then the story's over and you're like, oh, that was fun. Oh, I was scared a little bit. Oh, that was cool. All right, but great job.
Wait, hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna, because you're a fan of it, so I can ask you questions and you might have reasons for why they happen. So like everything's fairly convenient for a horror film. Like her phone breaks down, or like we never answer the spider webbing, or like we're following close behind, but like okay, why the phone breaking down? The phone breaking.
That's just classic horror tropes, man.
Well, we're past that point right now, aren't we? Smarter audiences who recognize those tropes, and we're trying to postmodern do something different than those tropes now.
I kind of feel like if you embrace tropes, they can work for you a lot. And even still, like, I mean, sure, like I who Ty West is, right? I'm sure you're familiar.
Yeah.
So I saw him speak years ago at a film festival, and he was all about playing against tropes, and we have to go away from tropes, and the jump scare can't be a thing unless you subvert the jump scare, and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And, I buy into all that, but then, when you watch his movies, it's like, come on, Ty, you're fucking doing the same shit everyone else is doing.
Yeah, he does the same thing too.
It's not like, you haven't like cracked the code and unlocked this amazing thing. Like, you're still relying on tropes in genre, no matter how much you say you're not relying on tropes in genre. It's just, you are, it just is. And sometimes you can go against them and you can go backwards, but you're still using them to your advantage. So I don't think that embracing them now and again is necessarily a bad thing, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, oh, well, of course the phone's out. Fuck, you know?
But it wasn't just out. It was like weird sci-fi out. It was like some crazy alien.
Which I like even
out.
more. I like that even more, that it's like this creature, this demonic thing has got her. She's like, she's in the web of this thing, whatever it is, the devil, you know, a demon, whatever. Like, I like that kind of stuff. You know, I think that to me, it just is satisfying, you know, in a way, more so than the phone just going out, for instance. You know?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll give myself a little bit of a break here in the sense of that, like, I'm like full horror brain right now, right? Like, I'm writing a horror script, I'm watching horror films. We're almost done with Haunting a Bly Manor. So I think right now I may be a little bit more critical than I would be had I seen this film a month from now.
Interesting.
Or a month ago. But I want to commend Dave for making an entertaining short that just wasn't my cup of tea, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean anyway, you know, that it's objectively anything. It's just not for me.
Well, he got the stamp of some of the horror gods. Like, he got into Shriek Fest, which is a hard film festival to get into for horror stuff. I know I've been rejected every time I've applied. But anyways, I stand by my statement. I'm a fan of this movie. I think people should watch it. And I want to know, would you come down on Liz's side?
No.
Is this bullshit? Is this a waste of our time? Or do you come back on Alrik's side? Like, oh, this is fun, good little short. It's great.
The like 1.5 people who respond to that prompt will be on your side. I promise you.
I don't know. I feel like our listeners are very nice. Like, no one responds negatively to things. I mean, we've had like very
such a
few
meanie right now.
negative responses. No, it's good. I like it. I like the honesty. I like these conversations because I think it's really interesting. Like, does every horror movie have to be a Get Out, right? Like, do they all have to have that
They
level?
don't need to have social value, but I think
statements?
they should have a point. I want to know why. I want to know the worldview of the artist, even if it's not a political statement. That's all.
Interesting.
Maybe Dave's a nihilist and he's just like, we're all screwed.
I think he's just trying to make horror movies. And, you know, that's like his goal is like, I want to make horror shorts that rock. And that's what he's trying to do. Yeah. And I don't necessarily know if he's always trying to make a statement in his horror shorts. Like Window Dressing, we didn't watch that one, but that's another one that he did that's pretty good. But I would say it falls into the almost exact same category. Like, I wouldn't say like there's no big statement. There's no big, like, you know, theme to it necessarily, but it's just fun little short film, Twilight Zone stuff, you know? Anyways, and is that so wrong, people? I mean, maybe it is. Maybe we have to have themes in all our movies. I certainly do, or try to.
I just want to know why you spend 6 months or 3 months or 2 weeks or whatever, why you spend that amount of time on that piece of art. That's all. Because I think you're getting a bunch of people involved, or you're using their time and their energy.
And dollar bills.
And dollar bills. So that's all.
True.
I think. It might not be all. I seem to keep talking. It's not all, but I'll try to stop now.
This is just a weird segue. We just found out that we're going to have Joe Bob Briggs on the show soon, which, like, I am so excited about. I've been watching his show every night, like, since I told you I started watching his show. So.
But why did you start watching his show?
Because of you, Liz, because you told me how great it was and that I needed to check it out. And so I got Shudder specifically to check out the show. And it's amazing. And I've been watching a ton of horror movies lately, and like all these weird ass movies like Society, which I love.
That's my God. I love Society.
Society is amazing. I want to make it a Society like movie so bad.
The shunting. Let the shunting begin. Oh my God. No, so Sean, okay, so I know we're gonna cut all this, but I have to say, so Sean paid for a cameo from Joe Bob Briggs for my birthday, right? And he wrote a little bit and he's like, she really likes Society, and like he just listed my favorite movies, and Joe Bob remarked on the fact that I liked Society. It was like this nice little back and forth.
Oh, that's really
I
fun.
love gross out weird shit, but I do think that actually has a statement.
It does.
It's about class systems.
It definitely does as a statement. That's why I like it, because it's not just gross out. I also like that movie because it really commits to its tone and its style all the way through. And it's bonkers crazy from the beginning to the end. And it's building up to the most bonkers crazy thing. But it's like always got a little crazy running through it with like the dialogue and like the things the characters will like slip out, you know. And it's like, oh no, it's just so weird. It's so great.
Oh, I love it. Super fun.
Really good.
We can agree on Society.
Yeah. First we dine, then we copulate. best line ever. Anyways, so I think maybe it's time to go to Soapdish.
I'm Lori Craven, and I'm an actress.
An actress? Really? How nice for you. I'm Betsy Faye Sharon, and I'm a bitch.
Yeah, so my good friend, Sarah Moshman, who is a filmmaker and wonderful human, wrote a book.
What is her book about?
It's about documentary filmmaking.
Ah, cool.
She's made 3 documentary features, and she's done really well with them. And she does all these like amazing speaking gigs around the world. Like she's like a speaker, like an agent for when she speaks. She's not like me, where I'm like begging people to like invite me on their Zooms. Like she gets paid and traveled to speak. That's how important she is.
Don't you get paid to do speaking engagements too? Sometimes, doesn't that happen?
Sometimes, every now and then, someone will take pity on me, and I'll get a little money.
I got to figure out how to get into that game because I do a lot of talking with this podcast. Like I feel like I should be making money off of it somehow, but I don't honestly like feel like I'm like important enough to really speak at anything yet. I think I have to make like 4 more movies, and then maybe it can be important enough.
You could read Sarah Moshman's book, and maybe she tells you how she did it.
Oh, good pointer.
So we asked her a few questions about it, and here she is to talk about it.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Moshman. I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I've produced and directed 3 feature-length documentaries, The Empowerment Project, Losing Sight of Shore, and Nevertheless. But today I'm here to tell you about my book. It's called Empowered Filmmaking, How to Make a Documentary on Your Own Terms. I'm a first-time author. I self-published this awesome book. And the reason I wrote it this year was, like so many of us in the film industry, I wasn't able to make a documentary or really any media project that I wanted to make this year. So I decided to write a book about how to make one instead with what limited time I have as a mom and a filmmaker. But I really wanted to take the reader through the entire process of making an independent documentary film, from coming up with an idea, finding inspiration, getting access to a character or an event or person, through camera, lighting, and audio basics, to marketing, distribution, crowdfunding, fundraising. There's a big meaty chapter about fundraising in this book. So lots to learn. It was really fun to write, honestly, to be able to reflect on all that I've learned in the last 7 or so years making these 3 films. I went to film school, but really this book is about everything I didn't learn in film school and kind of picked up along the way. So I'm really proud to share it with you today, and I hope that you'll order it. It's on Amazon, on Kindle, and paperback. Available as of October 20th, 2020. Why do I make documentaries? I make documentaries because it's such an incredible way to showcase a person, an issue, a character, an event, a part of our life that otherwise doesn't get the light shined on them very brightly. I also have a deep passion for equality, feminism, and showcasing strong female role models on screen. So that's a huge part of my mission and my messaging is how to showcase stories of women that you've never heard before, but why haven't you heard them before? And representation of women on screen and issues that impact women. That's what I'm most passionate about. And so I'll share a takeaway from the book. We have a whole chapter on interview techniques. I've interviewed a lot of people. I actually worked on the reality show Dancing with the Stars for 10 seasons. So even just during my tenure on that show, I interviewed Olympic athletes and Super Bowl champions and Oscar-winning actors and all kinds of celebrities that you've heard of and not heard of on that show. And then through making documentaries, more long-form content, I've picked up a lot of sort of interview techniques along the way. So I'll share a few with you today. I would say doing your research is really important. Coming to an interview, knowing something about the person that you're speaking with, but also being open to where the conversation is going to go and not being too tied to your research or tied to the questions that you've prepared if you have. I often prepare questions ahead of time and then honestly put those down. And I want to be as present as possible with the person that I'm talking with and really listen to the person that you're hearing from and honor the fact that they've shared this space with you today. They're putting themselves out there. Sometimes they might be sharing a really painful or vulnerable story. So really honoring that. Another cordial part of that is to make eye contact. I know it sounds so basic, but I've definitely been interviewed before when the interviewer didn't really give me any eye contact at all. And I felt really disconnected from them and didn't know where to look, first of all, but also just felt like they weren't really hearing me. So try to make it as conversational as possible. I often find that I probably look quite ridiculous behind the camera because I'm nodding or, trying to be full of expression without making any noise so that my voice, my noises aren't recorded on the microphone. So I probably look like a fool, but what I really want is for the person I'm interviewing to feel comfortable to open up and to share something maybe they haven't shared before or weren't expecting to share, or they were nervous. Being on camera is really uncomfortable for people. So you want to create an environment where people feel like their best selves and that they can really open up to you in a way that they might not have done so before. So I think the interview space is really sacred. And so the more nurturing of an environment you can create, and that tags to your crew as well, briefing your crew on what the subject matter is going to be about. If it's really sensitive, then you want them to know so that they're not, being rude, just being on their phone or talking to each other, joking around. You really need to set the tone as the director or as the interviewer or both, that this is your space and you want to create a really warm, welcoming environment for someone to come into. So great eye contact, do your research, create a nurturing environment, and you'll have, hopefully, a great interview. So check out Empowered Filmmaking, How to Make a Documentary on Your Own Terms, available on Amazon as of 10/20/20, and hopefully you can get a lot out of it. I share all kinds of tips and tricks and stories. I go through my process to make all 3 of my films. I talk about what my budgets were, how I created revenue from them, and everything along the way. Very DIY, grassroots production. So I'm Sarah Moshman. Thank you so much.
So I think with all that jibber jabbering, it's finally time to get to our awesome interview about vampires versus the Bronx with Oz Rodriguez. I was going to say starring Oz Rodriguez, but it's not starring. He's starring in the interview, but it's not starring. Well, we're here with Oz Rodriguez from Vampires vs. the Bronx, director and writer. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Excellent. So we're going to start with a few rapid-fire questions. I'll go first. How many days did you shoot the film?
25 shooting days.
What can you talk about in terms of your budget?
It was low. It was a low budget.
It was low.
We'll dissect that later.
Yes. How long did you work on the film from inception to it being released?
I guess 3.5 years, maybe. Or maybe, nice. I remember it was late December 2016. I was in the Dominican Republic when I had the idea. So that I kind of remember that, or at least the idea that I wanted to tell a story like this.
How big was your crew?
Crew was not huge. I'm going to ask my wife a question right now. We were tier 1 or tier 2? I think we were tier 1. It was, we'll get into this. We'll dissect this. It was a tough shoot. So I'm very excited to celebrate how well it's gone. But we'll talk about how crazy it was. It wasn't a huge crew. I mean, I asked for a lot of favors. I come from SNL. So like, for example, I had Louis from SNL, the head of makeup, come down and he helped me with the vampires. And our stunt crew was limited, but I think everybody was very excited to work on it. So I wouldn't say it was a huge crew.
And then out of all your projects, how difficult was this one?
It was up there. It might have been the most difficult ever. It was difficult. I feel like we can dissect that in many, many ways. So teaser, it was difficult. So it's been exciting to see the response.
Well, let's go back to that budget question, because I think people would listen to this show and know this movie and say, well, it's on Netflix and it's genre, and look at Oz. He's got this like history of all these cool projects, but you say it's low. So, maybe some of the challenges that presented themselves because of the budget?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was a low budget of, it was $5 million, and it was very ambitious and not a lot of shooting days. We also shot with kids. So their shooting days were 9.5 hours, and I was doing a movie about vampires, so I had to shoot at night a lot, and their curfew's midnight. And then I also shot in the summer in New York City. So the sun is going down at like 8:30. One day it went down at 9 p.m. And that was that. Yeah. So, it was insane. It was insane.
So how do you navigate that? So like, let's say, you have only basically 3 hours to shoot with the kids, like on a night shoot exterior stuff, right? Like, what was your process to making that work?
I would say that I learned a lot from SNL. SNL, there's obviously a budget. It's a successful show. There's money behind it, but what we don't have is time. Like, for example, the videos I would do, I would be handed a script Wednesday night, and then I had to pre-produce on Thursday, and then we shot Friday, and then Saturday it's on the air. So it was an insane schedule. So I learned a lot there as far as like how to figure things out. I learned so much in every department, basically, a lot of problem solving, and I took all those lessons to Vampires, which was, I didn't have the resources of SNL, but I use all those things I learned and call on all the favors I could.
So you were in the Dominican Republic and you came up with this idea. Can you bring us back? Tell us how it all happened.
Sure. I was in the Dominican Republic. It was sort of at a crossroads because I had worked with I went to SNL working with a friend of mine. We were directing together. His name was Matt Valines, and he had passed away. So I was still at SNL, but it was like professionally, I was different. It was always us together. So there was that. I was at SNL, so I had a place to be, and everybody was amazing there through that time. But it was a different situation for me. And then at the same time, it was December 2016, so it was a month after. And then I remember it being in the Dominican Republic, and Jeff Sessions is on record speaking about Dominicans, not in a fond manner. And I think that was another thing that inspired me to like. At that time, I'd been in SNL for a few years, and I've gained the trust of people and sort of been successful there. And I feel like now's the time to try to tell a story and basically shoot my shot. That's sort of where the first spark was. And then Matt and I also always wanted to do a movie about vampires. We were sort of obsessed with it and had all these silly ideas. So that was in the back of my mind. But yeah, that was where it started. That was the initial spark in the Dominican Republic in my parents' house.
Wow, amazing. So I was going to ask the question, like, why horror, why vampires, but you kind of just answered that. That was like something that you always wanted to do. But when you're coming up with this concept and you're working on making this movie, were there anything specific with vampires that you wanted to do that you felt like you hadn't seen before that you wanted to like kind of bring and show the world in this movie?
So I think the vampires aspect was there, and sort of it was sort of there, but amongst many other things. Like I had other ideas, so that was like one of them. And then I knew I wanted to tell a story about Dominicans. I am from the Dominican Republic, and I live in New York. There's a very large Dominican community over there. So those are I sort of had like these things that I wanted to do, like this sort of checklist of like. I kind of wanted to tell a genre story, and I wanted it to say something and also have a Dominican lead. And then speaking to people in Washington Heights, which is a big Dominican community, a lot of them had similar stories about how the neighborhood is changing, how like literally the culture is being sucked out. So I think I made the connection there to vampires very easily. One of the other things in my checklist was I wanted to make an adventure story, a fun adventure story with leads from like a Dominican American kid who was the lead, and a story like the ones I saw growing up, like Lost Boys and Goonies and Monster Squad. I saw those movies in the Dominican Republic, and I was able to connect with those kids who are in a lot of them in California running around. So I thought to myself, maybe it could be the other way. Maybe people can connect to kids running around in the Bronx.
So we're hearing a little bit about the origin, and you told us the budget, which you said was small, and with the big lie, Oz, because $5 million is so much money.
Yeah.
And I know you were trying to do a lot, but can you tell us a little bit about how you got the funding, and when did Netflix get involved, and that whole process of being enveloped into their system?
The money of it all is yes, it's definitely a lot. It's a lot of money.
Less than you deserve. I agree.
No, it's just it's also in New York City is tough tough city to shoot. And yeah, I was super ambitious. Yes, it's a ton of money for sure. It was crazy when that happened. I mean, it started as a Universal production. Lauren has a deal over there. You know, I was very lucky to have worked at SNL. Like, this wouldn't have happened if I didn't go to Lauren's office and tell him about the idea and the story. And I think it was at the right time because he was looking to make smaller budget movies at Universal. Well, that is what they call them. I'm just quoting them.
No. I mean, for like a a genre movie with a special effects and a flying death and everything, like you definitely did a lot.
Well, I think their deal is probably to make comedies, and I came in pitching an adventure horror movie that is also a comedy in there, but also had vampires and stuff. We set the movie up through Universal, and then we made the movie, and then after the movie was made, it was acquired by Netflix. I shrunk the timeline immensely there, but it's a Universal production that was then acquired by Netflix.
Can you talk a little bit about, like, this is obviously an SNL thing, but like, is it just a thing when anybody who works for that show can just approach Lauren and pitch ideas? Is that like kind of a thing that anyone can do, or did you have like a special in that allowed him to be open to hearing you out? Like, can you just talk a little bit about that process and how that worked?
Yeah, I don't think anyone can go in there. I don't think no. Yeah, I was there for like 7.5 seasons. I came back for the at-home shows, which was technically my 8th season, I guess. So I've been there for a little bit, and I think I've earned people's trust and I've earned Lauren's trust, and I think it just sort of happened at the right time. SNL is a tough place to work at. The demand is high for excellence, I guess. Like, there's a history to it, and the people that are working there are at the top level and doing their best. So yeah, it's a crazy place to work at. But I think once you've like shown that you can work there and belong there, I feel like sort of brought into this almost SNL circle. And yeah, I would say I earned the man's trust, so I can go in there and pitch this idea.
Throughout the process, whether it's with Lauren or whomever, did you have to show any sort of, I guess, evidence of your prowess in horror? And I mean, obviously you have a varied history and exemplary history in comedy, but was that ever questioned, your ability to handle horror?
So I one of the first things I did was I made a sizzle reel with the sort of the tone, the feel of the movie, and that was successful. And as far as like, I showed it to like my manager, and I think he got excited, and I feel like he got what I was going for. And that was the first thing I did. And I think from there, I put together a treatment with a lot of visuals. It was more of almost like a photo board, because I was new to the writing aspect of it. So it started from an idea that I then wrote a treatment and shared that with Lauren. And yeah, it was I was new to writing, so there was maybe too many visual stuff in there. But I think it was good for people to sort of, I think it helped me in that aspect, because I think the comedy of it all, I don't think anyone was worried about it, but I feel like presenting a sizzle reel or presenting a lot of visuals and sort of talking about the horror aspect of it all, I think in that way, it definitely helps.
Because I mean, just on paper, you kind of seem like you've done all this comedy. You have so much comedy experience that like you're like comedy director, comedy genre film, no problem. But like horror, it's not really as present on your, just looking at IMDb at least. So that's pretty awesome that you went that way, because that obviously convinced people that you could do it. And it was actually funny, like, because I watched the movie, loved it, congratulations, great job.
Thank you.
But like, I wouldn't have guessed that you were a comedy director only based off the film, because you really pulled off the horror stuff really well. So just getting into that, like, can you just talk about what your approach was for the more scary moments and the suspenseful moments, and how you wanted to really, convey that on screen?
Yeah, I mean, I work mostly in comedy, but I think I've been successful because I feel like just because it's a comedy doesn't mean it can't be visually elevated or interesting. So I've always had that approach, and I've always been a movie nerd. So, and like at SNL, after the digital shorts, there was, the visuals were so successful, and that's where I came in. It's sort of there's like a standard that you have to sort of match and try to even one up. So in conclusion, I'm a movie nerd. So yeah, it was really fun to sort of flex that muscle because I haven't really really done anything like that. Like in SNL, we've had sketches that have had some horror elements, like the Kanye story, but to really sit down and sort of figure out how to shoot a vampire movie with just the right amount of scares is really cool. So, we watch a lot of movies, and we watch this movie more for the look and the design of it all. But we watch, or at least I watch Bram Stoker's Dracula a ton. I'm a big fan of that one. And it was really interesting because you wanted it to feel scary, but also I've always, from the beginning, I knew I wanted to make a PG-13 movie. Like, that was I knew from the beginning that I wanted to make a movie where the kids that were in the movie could also watch it. So yeah, it's interesting. You end up watching like all these sort of different types of vampire movies, and there's movies with gore, and sort of you take some of that, but overall PG-13 was my main goal. So yeah, Lost Boys was a movie I watched. Bram Stoker's Dracula. I watched Chronos a lot.
Oh, cool.
I went deep in. It was really fun because there's so many different types of vampire movies. Like, it's just a genre there's something about it that is you can attach many different ideas to it.
Sorry to take us back even further. I just a disclaimer: we're filmmakers, and then our audience is mainly filmmakers, and we're always curious about leveraging aspects of our career to get to the next stage. And it seems to me, just from looking at your resume and talking to you, you got on this like very cool fast track pipeline by working at SNL. Can you talk a little bit about how you got that job in the first place?
Sure. So I'll take you all the way back to the Dominican Republic. So I knew I wanted to be like a filmmaker. I was in the Dominican Republic. At that point, there wasn't really a film industry. Right now, there actually is a film industry, which is really cool and exciting. There's even like a Pinewood Studios over there, but at that time there wasn't. So I saved up some money, and I actually ended up working for a production company in the DR, one of the only ones, and I started editing there. And that was the first thing I learned about editing, sort of filmmaking, which I think to this day is super helpful to me. But yeah, after a couple of years, I moved to LA to LA Film School. I met Matt Valines, and after we graduated, you graduate film school, you think everyone's going to give me a job. This is going to be amazing, and of course, it didn't happen. We tried making a couple of music videos, but the bands wanted us to pay for these videos, and like, we're trying to pay for school that we just spent some money on. And then a friend of ours, Dave Neer, came to us with an idea for a sketch, and he's like, "You guys want to shoot it for fun?" And we were like, "Yeah, I guess, why not?" And we actually worked at the film school that we went to, LA Film School, there at the equipment room. So we just borrowed the cameras and shot a silly sketch. We shot a couple sketches, put them online, and then we got an email from this company called Super Deluxe that was starting. It was a website. It was pre Funny or Die, or maybe around the same time. And they liked this sketch. I don't really even know how they got to it, because I did the usual thing where you send the email blast to all your friends, but I don't know, somehow it got to them. And they were starting this website, and they obviously wanted content, and they gave us a little bit of money to make 3 sketches. And it was the first time that I had, that we'd been paid to write and direct and edit and like to be filmmakers. It was amazing. So we did those 3, and they liked them, and then they gave us a little bit of money to make 10.
Wow.
And after that, they asked for 30. So for like a year and a half, we were like our own little mini production company. And Dave was writing the shorts. We got our friends to DP them. And then we kept our jobs at the film school. Sort of, we weren't full time, just to be able to borrow equipment from them, which I've told everybody there now. I came clean, but yeah, it was amazing. So we did 45 sketches, I guess, maybe even more. So it was almost like a second film school in a way. We learned so much, and you learn so much about working with actors and writing and editing. And then they ran out of money, Super Lux, and they closed, and then we didn't have a job. But then I threw a Hail Mary. I went to Funny or Die, and I sent Adam McKay a DM, which I didn't even know that's what you called them back then. And I just like sent him our stuff and like just told him about us and closed it and went about my day thinking he would never respond. And I think I checked the next day and he had responded that same night. And we ended up getting a general at Funny or Die. And then from there, they gave us like some money to make a sketch. That sketch was successful. Will Ferrell and McKay and Andrew Steele liked it and put it on the front page. And from there, we got a job at Funny or Die.
Wow.
So, and then Funny or Die was almost like the next step as far as filmmaking academy, because we started working with bigger budgets ish for an online sketch. Like we came in at a really amazing time and there were all these amazing celebrities coming in and also like just random people. Like I went to Charlie Sheen's house and shot a video there. Like that's wild. Around that time, the Tiger Blood time. So we were at Funny or Die, did a bunch of things there, and Funny or Die has this connection with SNL. McKay, Will Ferrell, and Andrew Steele too is one of the writers. Was a writer at SNL. So I would assume that's how they heard about us. And then we had a meeting with Eric Kentward, who's a producer at SNL, and then like a couple weeks later, they just called us and said they want to fly you to New York to do an interview with everybody at SNL. And that was the beginning of that. I think I made this very long. Was that the answer to your question, right? Is that how I got there?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Sounds like
so
a
it was like we
roller coaster.
started in this interesting time where it was like beginning of online sketches and like almost like YouTube. So and also like shooting digitally and editing and putting it out fast turnaround. Like it was really exciting to be in that time, I guess. Now I feel very old saying it like that.
Well, there's like 1,000 million questions to ask you about all that, but we don't have all of the time in the world. So I want to just ask, like, now after you've done this movie, this genre, comedy, horror, vampire film, what do you want to do next? Like, are you interested in more genre films like this? Or are you just going to go back to comedy? Like, where are you at now as a filmmaker?
I would like to tell more stories, more personal stories that that reflect me and my community and people that look like me and sort of put diversity on screen. And I think I would like to keep working in sort of the genre space because it's an interesting way to talk about things and interesting ideas and messages without seeming too preachy or not way too serious. But I think you can also have an interesting lesson in these genre stories. So it's a little bit of both. I'm also still working in comedy. I'm shooting Michael Che's sketch show starting next month. So I'm still I love it. It's great, but I've also, it's been exciting to tell my own story and tell a story that has Dominican kids and Puerto Rican kids and Haitian kids running around and kicking butt. Like I'd love to keep telling stories like that.
So we have 5 final questions. They're more like long view questions about you and your career. And the first one is, what's the first film you ever made and how do you feel about it now?
The first film I made?
The first film you've ever made, yeah.
Well, this feels like the first film I ever made because I directed it, wrote it. Matt and I also worked on a movie called Brother Nature, and that was amazing. I think because I wrote it myself, it feels like such a brand new thing for me. I feel great. I feel this last week has been amazing. It's been so cool to see the response, especially as far as like I kind of set out to do a movie where the kids in it, the leads look different than the type of movies that are out there, and it's been nice to see the response of people from New York and people from immigrant communities and just people from all over the place saying that they feel so seen and they're so excited that there's a story like this. And I've got messages from moms that their kids were so excited to see it and see themselves reflected on screen and now are sort of wanting to be little vampire slayers. So I feel great. In conclusion, I feel it feels awesome to see the response.
What's the best filmmaking advice you've ever received?
It was almost like a philosophy or something. In film school, they gave us a camera on the first day. and I had to do a short by the end of the week. And I had just moved to LA, so it was sensory overload. I couldn't believe that, but at least it gave me something to focus on. And it's not necessarily advice, but it's something I always think about, because what I tell people is always be as creative as you can. And if you have the chance to make something, even if it's with your phone, and sort of push yourself to experiment and to learn, I feel like that'll just make you a stronger filmmaker. And the reason I say that is I haven't stopped working since that day. I feel like I've gotten to this place because I've learned and sort of stumbled a bunch of times, but just always sort of put myself out there to try to do something.
Do you have a goal as a filmmaker?
To make more movies. I would love to make more movies, and not to sound like a broken record, but to make more movies like vampires with leads and characters in neighborhoods, places like that.
If you could go back in time, what's one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Don't be too hard on yourself. Sleep. And then also, it's okay to be afraid. I think if you are scared a little bit, I think that's good. It means you care and you want it to be good. And I feel like nowadays, I recognize that if you're afraid to do something, it's because the challenge is interesting. So I would say that.
Is making movies hard?
Yes, making movies is very hard, but there's nothing like it.
Awesome. So where should people go if they want to find you? Just watch vampires on Netflix, or where should people head?
First, watch vampires on Netflix, for sure. Watch vampires on Netflix. And then I'd say maybe rewatch it again. And then maybe tell your friends. And then, you're asking me if I'm on the socials. I am, but it's not going to be an exciting follow. I'll tell you that. But yeah, my name's Oz Rodriguez in the Twitter and the Instagram. But surely not important. I would just want people to check out Vampires vs. the Bronx on Netflix. And if they like it, tell someone.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming on our show.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
All right, well, thank you for listening. Thank you to Oz Rodriguez for being on the show, and Christine Sun from Netflix for all her work in arranging it. She's not arranging. What is she arranging?
She arranged it. She set it up.
Yeah, she arranged it. Okay.
Like an arranged marriage, but like an interview instead.
That's the analogy we're going for here. Check out our website, makingmoviesishard.com. You can find links to the things we talked about on this episode. If you want to get in contact with us, we really do respond to every single message. Send an email to podcast@makingmoviesishard.com. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at MMIH Podcast. I am Liz Manischal on Twitter, Liz Manischal Film on Instagram, and Alrik, where are you?
I am Alrik B on Twitter, which I rarely use except to like Liz's tweets, and I am also Alrik B on Instagram as well.
If you like the show, tell a friend, help us get the word out, leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher. They actually are incredibly meaningful to us. Thank you to Alrik for editing this show, and we will talk to y'all next week.
Cool. Is that good? It's okay.
Yeah, I do actually like that. I think we should keep that.
Okay, good.
Okay, ready?